I think it's just AEW is really banging on all cylinders, it feels like right now, not just with this show and their momentum and the ratings, but also a lot of the goodwill that AEW is building up, because this story that also broke earlier in the week, Jay, but AEW starting this new partnership with the Owen Hart Foundation.
Yes, we need to talk about that, because that is so cool.
Yeah, the press release that came out earlier in the week, it talks about how their AEW is working with the Owen Hart Foundation, and it's not just going to be like a merchandise thing. Merchandise will be covered in that, but also they plan on doing a big
action figures.
There's going to be Owen Hart action figures, the Owen Hart Cup tournament, and they're going to have a cup called the Owen. And they even mentioned they didn't specify it's going to be in the next video game, but like Owen Hart, like the rights to Owen Hart are going to be on video games now. That's AEW,
so cool.
Which is really great, because like all fans have had to go off for the last 20 years or so has been creative wrestlers. This is not the first time since WWE that Owen Hart would appear in a video game. He actually showed up in the Legends of Wrestling video game in the early 2000s on the PS2. So there was that, and a long dearth of time because WWE was the only game in town, and now this. So I think this is just a great story, though, the fact that like AEW is able to bridge this gap with, you know, Martha Hart and the Owen Hart Foundation.
Yes.
They succeeded where WWE could not, because if you watch Dark Side of the Ring about the Owen Hart tragedy, you know why Martha Hart wants nothing to do with WWE. You know, just their blatant neglect and what they did with the equipment. It's like, if anyone deserves to have a grudge against WWE, in a world where lots of people have grudges and people are, oh, sour grapes, da-da-da. No, Martha Hart deserves to have a grudge against Vince McMahon and WWE until the day she dies, because it's just, it's that scandalous. So,
and I was there, remember?
It was a crazy time for sure. And I think the issue, it's like everyone's like, oh, Martha Hart's just doing this to get at WWE. If anyone turns this good story of a man's legacy being remembered by a company with a large platform as something between AEW versus WWE, then you can just fuck right off. Like, it's not, that's not what this is about. That's not what this is for.
Yeah.
We're trying to honor a man who has been severely underappreciated for the last generation. A whole generation of fans don't really know who Owen Hart is outside of his tragic death.
Right.
So I think like this is going to be a great way of them doing it. You know, if you look at Martha Hart's, just like, there's a picture of her holding the the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame plaque of Owen Hart.
Right.
You know, she's had Owen Hart featured in video games that aren't WWE. Her grudge is not with the wrestling business. Like, it is with WWE, but you look at how like AEW, I think, honestly, the way AEW treated Brody Lee's death is probably the catalyst for all this goodwill we're seeing right now in AEW and what they're creating. Like, a lot of the wrestlers who have signed on in the last several months, like, said, like, oh, the way they treated Brody Lee's, like, his health issues and his passing and his tribute stuff, like, that was a contributing factor in me joining AEW. CM Punk said that. I'm pretty sure Bryan Danielson said that.
Yeah.
So you got that. And maybe it was that also motivated Martha Hart to agree to do business with AEW, because like, here's a company that can handle the loss of one of their own the right way and not sensationalize it, not try just to turn a buck off it, as opposed to what, you know, WWE might have done.
For a while, they could not. I mean, anybody that was Latino that wrestled had to be attached to Eddie Guerrero's spirit.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like it had, you know, every wrestler death has to end up being transactional in some way. And you look at how they've treated the Ultimate Warrior's legacy since he passed. It's like, it's got to have some kind of tie. How can they benefit from this wrestler dying? And like, Martha Hart has never given them the satisfaction of doing that. You know, they've been able, like, they've snuck him in a couple of times. Like, he was in the Bret Hart documentary that came out shortly after he mended the bridges with Vince. They had an Owen Blu-ray, if I'm correct. I think that's the big difference, though, is that AEW has shown a track record of how they deal with tragedy like this and how they support each other in these drastic times. And I think, you know, I can't speak for her, but I would imagine that was a contributing factor, much in the way the treatment of Brody Lee's death was a factor for other wrestlers to come onto the company.
Right. No, and, you know, I completely agree with you. You know, he has been underutilized as far as, like, you know, being talked about and remembered correctly and whatnot. I mean, I'm sure, though, I mean, there's got to be some connection as well, too, because remember, Bret Hart introduced the championship, the very first championship there in Vegas. Yes.
I'm not sure if there's a connection, but I think there is. I mean, maybe not an intentional one,
right.
but I would say there's a coincidence that Bret was there for the first show, and I don't know what Bret's relationship with WWE is right now, but like, you know, I forget who else wrote this. Maybe theorized. Maybe Mark Henry had something to do with it too, because Mark Henry's Hall of Fame speech a couple of years ago, he made a very impassionate plea about getting Owen into the Hall of Fame, but like maybe he couldn't do it in WWE, so maybe this is the avenue that he gets it done here.
Right, right. No, absolutely.
And again, people are complaining about, you know, the people who do complain about this, whatever ghouls there are out there.
I can't imagine there is anybody. Is there?
There are people, honestly, like on my Facebook page where I posted that news, there were some people who had some really unsavory shit to talk about it. And
really?
Like, I pay them no mind on one hand.
I was going to say, I didn't see any of that.
But then there are people who are like, it's like spiteful, or people are saying that it's like, I saw someone say WWE should sue AEW for this.
Oh,
because
Lord.
Owen doesn't have history at AEW, which is like so.
He has history in pro wrestling in general.
Exactly. Like, and you think about the other wrestlers in AEW who do have a history with him.
I'm trying to think of maybe another title or like a cup or something that's used in pro wrestling, like that wasn't a WWE name that the WWE is using. I'm trying to think of who or what that might be necessarily, and for some reason it's just not coming to mind. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think honestly. There's not. I mean, there was like the Brian Pillman Memorial Tournament. But that was an independent thing that was not run by WWE. It is hard for me to think about like about tournaments or shows that are run by companies that like don't necessarily have a connection to that wrestler. Like, fine, I guess, yeah, that's the one thing you can have, is that Owen didn't have a history in AEW. But like you said, Jay, he's got a history in pro wrestling, and there's a lot of people in wrestling and in AEW who do want to honor that. They have the means, they have the partnership with the Owen Hart Foundation now. So now the story can be told, and now Owen can be glorified in that way that he's not had the chance to in the last 20 years. And I don't want to overexcite video game fans, but you could have the Hart brothers versus the Young Bucks virtually. Yeah, I mean, honestly, with Owen Hart possibly being in video games, I think they can open the floodgates to a lot of other stuff. And like, honestly, this is just great news overall. It's just, you said there's an action figure coming, so I'm gonna buy that for sure. Yeah, I've even seen some, like, I don't know how true these are, but I think I saw some renders of some prototypes getting leaked. So I'll send those your way for sure. Please do.
Want to hear more? Subscribe to This Week in Regret on YouTube for full episodes of the podcast, dropping every Thursday night. Don't forget, we're also on SoundCloud.